like soldiers, we don't play, yeah, we're ready for war.
The first simultaneous title holder in UFC history, with records in gate, attendance, pay-per-view buy rates.
It's not just his cult of personality, it's what he's able to do.
All backed by knockouts across 3 weight divisions.
At featherweight, lightweight, and now at welterweight, etch my name in history one more time.
Will now headline UFC 257 for a rematch, 6 years in the making.
That's a chaos fight.
Fury inside us, fired up, got our eye on the prize.
This is going to be a dogfight with 2 hungry pit bulls. Since Dustin Porier and Conor McGregor's featherweight bout in 2014.
I mean, that was just glorious. That's the real deal, ladies and gentlemen.
They have each amassed legendary lightweight runs.
Dustin Porier rises again! I've been knocked down and I've climbed back over and over again.
2-division champion Conor McGregor.
I ridicule everyone on the roster. They're not on my level.
And are set to do battle once again on January 23rd.
These are the moments that the fighters live for.
This is a different fight.
The striking of Poirier has just gotten so much better.
6 years is a long time, and I plan on executing.
Oh my God! Porier continues to land! Does it? Dustin Porier! Knockout! Wow! I like Dustin. I did back then. I do now. I think he's a good fighter. He's even a great fighter, you know, but great is still levels below me. Whoa! Early head kick from McGregor!
That's crazy.
Conor!
That's it.
McGregor!
Wow.
Too easy!
The co-main event will feature the newly signed Michael Chandler, a multiple-time champion from outside the UFC.
It's do or die.
His first test comes against top 10 knockout artist Dan Hooker.
Do or die. We'll be victorious.
Knockout victory! Every time he steps back in the octagon, you get a better version of Dan Hooker. The Hangman does it again!
Special fighters meet special opponents.
Welcome to the big show.
But before the UFC kicks off the new year in style, first, get ready
Sham deal, yeah.
Home sweet home is right.
for UFC 257.
Welcome back.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
What's up, guys? This is going to be the full card breakdown for UFC 257, McGregor versus Poirier 2. It's coming up tonight, 8 o'clock start time for the prelims. So this is a stacked card, first big pay-per-view of the year. Co-main and main event are really good fights. Some good matchups throughout the rest of the card as well. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get straight into it. First fight of the night, we got Amir Albazi and Zhumagulov. So Zhumagulov took a loss in his last fight to Julian. Didn't really look himself in that fight, in my opinion. Previous to that, he had 4 wins straight, a couple notable names, Tyson Nam and Ali Bagutinov in that 4-fight run. They were all 5-round title fights. He has some pretty good cardio, and I do lean towards him in this fight. Amir Albazi, he beat Malcolm Gordon in his UFC debut. Not really the highest level competition, making your debut in the UFC, but he got him out of there in the first round. Previous to that, he had another first-round win, and a loss to Jose Torres before that. So no real shame in that loss. And he was on a real win streak before that as well. I think it was, over 10 fights. So this is a good matchup in my opinion. And I have to go with Zhumagulov, though. I think he has the better experience. He's fought the higher level competition. Might be a slight strength advantage for Amir Albazi, but I think Zalga should be able to pick up a decision here. I do think it goes over 1.5. So I'm going to say Zhumagulov gets it done here by decision. Then we got Nick Lentz and Movsar Evloev. So this is a good fight. Movsar is on a big run, 13-0. Some impressive wins. He beat Mike Grundy in his last fight. Previous to that, Enrique Barzola and Sang-Woo Choi. So, a good 3-fight stretch in the UFC to make his debut. Really impressive to see a fighter come in and go on a run like that. Nick Lentz, he's a real veteran of the sport. A lot of really good experience. He had a fight against Arnold Allen that I think was really close. Charles Oliveira, we've seen where he's at now. So, and previous to that, he has a win over Scott Holtzman, Gray Maynard. But there have been some questionable performances from him. Something's telling me to go with the dog here. It's not a fight that I would bet. I think Movsar Evloev is a really tough guy. He's a really sharp, technical fighter. But Lentz has the experience. He's going to be really hungry for a win here. And I could see it being a really close fight. I think Movsar Evloev, overall, he is the sharper, younger, more technical fighter. But Nick Lentz, like I said, with his experience, I'm actually going to go with him here. I'm going to say Nick Lentz gets it done by decision. Next up, we got Khalil Roundtree and Marcin Prachnio. So Marcin, I think he took a couple KO losses. I'm just going to check it out real quick. So yeah, he's on a 3-fight losing streak, all first-round knockouts. So, of course, it's going to be hard to pick him in this fight. Khalil Roundtree is a pretty good striker as well. He went to Tiger Muay Thai previous to his win over Eric Anders, and he looked really good in that fight. Eric Anders had nothing for him. He dominated that fight. And then he came back and took a loss to Ion Kuntalaba. So I think in this fight, he's going to be hungry for the win, and I think that his striking is levels above Prachnio. Now, Prachnio does throw with a lot of power. There's always a potential that he could clip Khalil Roundtree. We have seen Roundtree put away in the past, but I'm definitely way more comfortable going with Khalil here. I think he should be able to get it done. I'm going to say Khalil Roundtree by first-round knockout. Next, we got Sarah McMahon and Juliana Pena. So Sarah McMahon's a really good wrestler. She has a lot of experience in the UFC. She has had some gaps in between her fights, but she does take part in a lot of grappling matches and things like that. Coming off a win over Lena Landsberg, she was pretty dominant in that fight, used her wrestling. The thing about this fight, though, Juliana Pena has really good submissions, and when Sarah McMahon takes her down, that leaves a big opening for Pena to work her game, and I think it can be really dangerous if it hits the mat for her. Juliana Pena is coming off a loss that I actually thought, she was doing well in that fight. I thought she was winning. Joanne Durandamine is a really good kickboxer. I expected her to win that fight. But like I said, Juliana Pena was winning in that fight before she took the L. She actually got submitted. It was pretty surprising to me. But I think in this fight, with it being Juliana Pena's strength on the mat, I actually lean towards her to get it done by submission. So I'm going to be picking her in this fight. I'm going to say Juliana Pena gets it done by third-round submission. Then we got a really interesting fight, Brad Tavares and Antonio Carlos Jr. I was actually surprised to see Carlos Jr. as such a dog when the line dropped. He still is the underdog at this point, but I think it's close to even money. And this is going to be the first dog of the night. I'm going to be taking Carlos Jr. I think Brad Tavares, he is a good fighter, a lot of UFC experience. He's coming off a couple of losses, though, one to Edmund Shabazian and the other to Israel Adesanya. So 2 high-level fighters there. He was KO'd, though, by Edmund Shabazian. So, it has been a bit of a layoff since that fight. Carlos Jr., another guy with some good UFC experience. He's also coming off a couple of losses. Split decision loss to Uriah Hall, and then a decision loss to Ian Heinisch. So previous to that, though, he was on a big win streak, 6 fights straight. I think this could be a really good fight, but I am going to go with the underdog. I'm going to take Carlos Jr. to get it done by decision in this fight. And like I said, it's going to be the first dog of the night. Then we got Matt Frevola and Armin Suzuki. So this is another good fight. Matt Frevola has looked really good in his past few fights. He's coming off of a couple wins, one over Luis Pena, where he was a huge dog. Same with Jalen Turner. So, he was a big dog in both of those fights. He's a grind-heavy fighter. He's not afraid to get in there and mix it up. He's a really tough guy. And Tsarukyan, he's also a really tough guy, a really sharp fighter, coming off a couple of wins himself, one over Davi Ramos. I consider that a pretty big win. Also, Aubin Mercier, a couple of fighters that have some really good grappling. So, that will work in his favor against a guy like Matt Frevola, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised to see Frevola pull it out, but I do feel more comfortable going with Armin in this one. I'm going to say Armin gets it done by TKO in the first or second round, but I expect that to be another really good fight. Then we got Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. So this fight, just to get to the point, I think the line's way off here. I think it should be, a lot closer to a pick'em. Rodriguez is a big dog in this fight, and I don't think it's justified. I do think Ribas is really good, especially on the feet. She looks really clean. She's got some big wins in the UFC. Ronda Marcos, I consider to be a big win. Mackenzie Dern as well. I think that's the only loss Mackenzie Dern's taken to this point. And she just used her stand-up, was able to keep her off of her, and got the decision win there. So as much as I do think Ribas is a really good fighter, and I think the UFC is probably looking at her for the win here, a lot of people underestimating Marina Rodriguez. She's had some really good fights herself. She lost a split to Carla Esparza, one of the top fighters in the division. She has a win previous to that over Tisha Torres, Jessica Aguilar. So, she does have some notable wins. Now, she had a decision draw with Ronda Marcos herself, but I did think she won that fight. But I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez here. I'll say she gets it done by decision, and I do think this will go over the 1.5. Looking forward to it. Second dog of the night, Marina Rodriguez by decision. Next up, we got Andrew Sanchez and Mahmoud Muradov. So Muradov is a member of the Money team. I think he's the only MMA fighter on the Money team. And he is a really good fighter. I think he's on, well over a 10-fight win streak. 2 fights in the UFC. He got wins in both of those fights. His fight against Alessio Di Chirico was pretty close. He got that done by decision. And then Trevor Smith, he actually got it done by finish in the 3rd round. So, he has looked pretty impressive. He does look to be in really good shape for this fight. Andrew Sanchez also has some big wins in the UFC, coming off a finish over Wellington Turman in the 1st round. A lot of people expected him to get a decision or kind of grind out a win in that fight. But he did get it done, like I said, 1st round TKO. Previous to that, he lost to Marvin Vettori by decision. No shame in that loss. So this is a really good fight, in my opinion. I do lean towards Mahmoud Muradov. I do expect it to probably go over the 1.5 unless Mahmoud catches him with a shot. But again, I think it should be a really good fight. I'm going to go with Muradov here to get it done by TKO in the 1st or 2nd round. Next, we got Jessica Ai and Joanne Calderwood. So this is a pretty good fight. I do think that Jessica Ai is a bit on the decline, though. She's coming off a loss to Cynthia Calvillo. But previous to that, she did look pretty good against Vivian Araújo. Araújo did gas out in that fight, but it was a big win for Ai. But I do, like I said, I think she's on the decline a bit. Joanne Calderwood, on the other hand, I feel like she's on her way up. She's coming off a loss as well to Jennifer Maia, 1st round armbar. A lot of people had Calderwood winning that fight, so it was a big upset for Maia. But previous to that, she beat Andrea Lee, so a big win there, and lost to Caitlin Chikagian before that. So this is a really good matchup, like I said. I think it goes over 1.5, and I'm actually going to go with Jessica Ai as the dog. But, she'd have to put on a good performance, and be in really good shape and be focused for this fight. I think Calderwood's going to be really hungry, but I do think Ai has the skills to get it done if she's on point. So that's why I'm picking her to win this one. I'm going to say, like I said, by decision. Next up, we got the co-main event, a really good fight, Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler. So looking at the weigh-ins, Dan Hooker is significantly bigger than Michael Chandler. And when it comes to striking, I think, this is pretty close. I think Chandler definitely has a speed advantage. He's one of those fighters, it's hard to predict. He's got some good movement. He's really fast and explosive. So, I could see him catching Hooker with a shot and putting him away. But Hooker is pretty technical, when he's on point. There's a couple performances, that can throw me off a little bit. But I think he's going to be really sharp in this fight. And I think it makes for a really interesting one. Michael Chandler has a lot of experience outside of the UFC, some big wins in Bellator. He was dominant in that promotion for a long time. Coming off, I think it was a TKO win over Benson Henderson in the 1st round. Made it look easy against Sydney Outlaw as well. But he did lose to Patricio Pitbull in the 1st round. He got caught with a big shot. And that's kind of my worry in this fight for Dan Hooker picking up the win, along with the significant size advantage. So, both of these guys have their pros and cons. Chandler with the speed and explosiveness, as well as his power. And then Hooker, with that size advantage, the sharp striking and the UFC experience. Makes for a really good matchup. I'm actually going to go with the dog. I'm going to go with Michael Chandler to get it done. But again, Dan Hooker's been in the UFC. Been in those, high-level fights under the bright lights. Not that Chandler hasn't. I mean, Bellator, the fights that he was in were big-time fights, but it is a bit of a different level here being on a pay-per-view with McGregor in the co-main. But I am going to pick him to win. I'm going to take Michael Chandler to get it done by TKO in the second round. Then we got the main event, Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. So everybody knows these two fought in the past. Conor McGregor got it done early. He was in Poirier's head for that fight, though. Poirier talked about how much he didn't like him, how bad he wanted that win. And I do think that, all the outside things with that fight and all the mind games did get to him. Since then, he's been on a tear. He's looked really good. This is at a different weight class. Poirier does look really big. He looks in really good shape. Same with McGregor, though. He's taking this one really seriously. Talked about, how his cardio is in check. He's ready for a 5-round fight. Now, he has said that in the past, and we have seen him kind of gas out. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think this will play out for the most part on the feet. I could see Poirier going for a takedown, late in the second round, early in the third if it gets there. Conor McGregor calling for that 60-second knockout. I think that will be tough to do. But, you never know. But I do think this fight, as long as it lasts, will be really entertaining. I think it will live up to the hype. And, I don't think Dustin should be as big of a dog as he is. I don't think Conor McGregor is necessarily a bad parlay option. The line has gone down. And, at this point, not a whole lot of value, but if you do have him in a parlay, I'm not mad at that. I am going to have him as a parlay option. I am going to pick Conor McGregor to win by TKO. But if it does get into the third round and Dustin Poirier is looking to make it more of a grappling match, I definitely don't write him off. He's a really talented fighter. I think he's going to come in with a good game plan, and I think it's going to make for a really good fight. So I am going to take Conor McGregor by TKO in the first or second round. But anything after the third, I think it starts to lean towards Dustin Poirier. So really looking forward to this one. I'll pull up the bets now. So for the parlay, I got Khalil Roundtree paired up with Conor McGregor. And then for the 3 straight bets, we got Marina Rodriguez, Zhumagulov, and what was the last one? And Antonio Carlos Jr. So 3 straight bets, parlay. I'll probably have a couple over-unders on the second page as well. Still putting those together at the time I was making this video, but this is the first big card of the year. Really looking forward to it. Even if you disagree with me, if you can tell me why, I always respect it. And good luck to you guys. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.